Godzown country is a phrase that was first used to describe the Wicklow Mountains and has subsequently been used to refer to several places, including Surrey, Australia, United States, New Zealand, Kerala State, Yorkshire, Cornwall, Scotland and Wales. The phrase has been abbreviated to Godzone or less often Godzone. Early users: Ireland and England. The expression was first used to describe the Wicklow Mountains of Ireland by Edward Dubois, writing under the pseudonym A Knight Errant, in 1807, and in a poem describing the English county of Surrey in 1839. The phrase was also used in its more literal meaning to refer to heaven, in a poem by Elizabeth Harcourt Rolls Mitchell in 1857. United States. The phrase later found sporadic use to describe several American regions, most known as the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Also was used by the Confederate Army to describe parts of Tennessee in the 1860s. The phrase was also used to describe California in the 1860s, and by Clement Laird Vallandigham to describe the land of the Mississippi Plains. None of these remainder widely used to describe a region, though it is still occasionally used to describe the United States overall. During World War II, German Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels sarcastically mocked the USA as "aus Gott eigenem Land" in an essay that appeared in the German newspaper Das Reich on August 9, 1942. Goebbels ridiculed America as a young land that lacked culture, education and history in contrast with Germany. In 1943, the Nazis published an anti-American, anti-Semitic propaganda book written by Erwin Berghaus called USA, Nackt, Bilderdokumenter aus Gott eigenem Land, which also mockingly characterized the USA with the phrase. Several modern German newspapers such as Die Welt, Der Tagesspiegel and Die Zeit have also used the phrase Gottes eigenem Land to criticize American culture and society. New Zealand. The earliest recorded use of the phrase as applied to New Zealand was as the title of a poem about New Zealand written by Thomas Bracken. It was published in a book of his poems in 1890, and again in 1893 in a book entitled Lays and Lyrics, God's Own Country and Other Poems. God's Own Country as a phrase was often used and popularised by New Zealand's longest-serving Prime Minister, Richard John Seddon. He last quoted it on 10 June 1906 when he sent a telegram to the Victorian Premier, Thomas Bent, the day before leaving Sydney to return home to New Zealand. "Just leaving for God's own country," he wrote. He never made it, dying the next day on the ship Oswestry Grange. Bracken's God's Own Country is less well known internationally than God Defend New Zealand, which he published in 1876. The latter poem, set to music by John Joseph Woods, was declared the country's national hymn in 1940, and made the second national anthem of New Zealand along with God Save the Queen in 1977. Australia. In Australia, the phrase, God's own country, was often used to describe the country in the early 1900s, but it appears to have gradually fallen out of favour. The phrase, God's country, is often used to describe Queensland and the Sutherland Shire in southern Sydney. Rhodesia. The phrase, God's own country, was heard during the 1970s in Rhodesia, where most people perceived the land as beautiful despite the ongoing bush war of the time. Evidence of the phrase being used earlier in reference to Rhodesia is found in Chartered Millions, Rhodesia and the Challenge to the British Commonwealth by John Hobbes Harris, published 1920 by Swarthmore Press. The phrase, God's own, is distinctly different and was not used in Rhodesia. Kerala, India. Kerala is a state in southwest India, known as Godzone country. 2. According to Hindu mythology, Mahavishnu's sixth incarnation Parasurama fought back the advancing seas. He threw his axe from Kingan to Kanyakumari and the sea gave way, giving rise to present-day Kerala. In recent years the phrase has been adopted as a slogan by the tourism department of the Kerala state government in India as people started to explore more places outside the traditional tourist spots. Yorkshire, England. In the United Kingdom the phrase is commonly used by people to describe Yorkshire, England's largest county. This is used interchangeably with Godzone County.